I know there's been a lot of questions regarding scallops, these wet blobs that are mild and delicious, but how do we get them that are typically wet naturally, especially if they come frozen? How do we get a nice sear, a nice crust like I do in restaurants? Something nice and brown, golden brown on top. So let me show you how to do it. The key in it is to make sure they're as dry as possible and to get the pan as hot as possible, and make sure you don't overcrowd. I like a little butter as well at the end because that'll definitely help brown it. Let's get started.
The first thing I like to do with our partially frozen scallops is set them out on a rack and then put them in the refrigerator to cool off and dry. I got a beautiful windy cool day out, so I'm going to set them out here. We're also going to go ahead and set our oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit for our side dish, spaghetti squash. It's pretty simple actually. You get yourself a spaghetti squash, cut it right down the middle, and once you do that, you scoop out all the seeds with a spoon and your fingers. We're going to need a nice olive oiled pan for our spaghetti squash, so let's go ahead and get that. Next, we're going to lay our spaghetti squash halves cut side up on the pan. Then we're going to start seasoning it with some kosher salt and also some fresh cracked pepper. Flipping them back over, I'm going to poke some holes in the top with a fork to let that steam escape while it cooks. Just like that, into our oven for about 20 minutes. Now we're going to let them sit for 20 minutes and let it cool off so we can handle it. Just for a moment, back to our scallops. Let's take them and dredge them in some cornstarch. What that'll do is actually help excel the drying process and also provide a nice, delicious crust. Now that the squash is cool enough to handle, let's go ahead and get our fork and scrape off as much of the meat as possible. This will be our spaghetti. 1 whole small garlic clove and 1 small shallot, minced and then tossed into a little bowl. We are going to also pour some olive oil in here in the meantime. Just a few heads of baby broccoli. The stems are great to eat. So let's go ahead and cut them up nice and coarsely and toss them into a bowl and set it aside. One pot of ready to water boil, 1 big bowl of ice water to stop the cooking, and a colander. Let's go ahead and toss our chopped broccoli in here. We're going to cook this just al dente and pull it out and stop the cooking as soon as it turns to a vivid green. Colander right into the ice bath and stop the cooking. We're going to set that broccoli aside. Next, let's get our pan nice and hot. I like to use avocado oil because it's got a high smoking point. Once we see a little smoke coming up, it's hot enough. We're going to go ahead and place our scallops down. Leave at least 1 inch apart so they don't overcrowd and steam each other. I'm going to go ahead and try and make all of these fit into this pan. I think I got it. They're going to be ready to be flipped over as soon as you can start moving them around freely. If they budge, they're golden brown. They're ready to be flipped. If they're still stuck, let them cook a little bit longer until they're free. We're going to go ahead and flip all of them over. And at this point, we're going to add our butter and our shallots and garlic for the flavor, and the butter give it a nice extra little brownness and flavor, of course. At this point, I'm going to start moving a little faster. I'm going to start taking them out as they reach the temperature of an internally 130 to 135. Yes, I do use a thermometer on these as well. Now, leaving the pan as is, we're going to toss our broccoli into it. We're doing this to infuse all of these flavors while still keeping it al dente. Once that's done, we transfer to a bowl and add a little Parmesan cheese. Still using that same seasoned pan, we're going to toss our spaghetti squash into it. Again, remember, we're simply heating it back up. Leave it crispy and al dente. We don't want a plate of mush. Spaghetti is what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and season it. Some kosher salt, fresh cracked pepper, toss that around, and of course some Parmesan because, well, why not? Let's get to plating. First, we're going to start with some spaghetti squash. Lay that out in the middle of the plate and that'll be our base. Secondly, let's go ahead and add our broccoli. And last but not least, our scallops. To help balance and brighten this dish up, we're going to zest some lemon over all the plates. Just the yellow parts, please. For the final touch, sprinkle some fresh chopped parsley over the top. Now we're ready to serve.
This is it. If you can sell the crust now, this is something I can serve. A nice crust on the outside. Follow my instructions. You will certainly appreciate it, and so will your friends and family. And you've got yourself a delicious take on a scallop. Not a steamed scallop on a pan, a fried scallop on a pan with a crust, seared. See you next time.